Looks like I've been binge playing a bit of Dawn of War Dark Crusade again, and today we're building 40k terrain and we're making this Dawn of War inspired Necron power generator. Welcome back, great to have you here. If this is your first time here, here's what's up. If you want to improve your wargaming, make your tabletop battles more epic, and give your wargaming budget more power, then just smash the subscribe button below and ding the bell. That way, you won't miss anything. Now this video is going to be a sort of a two-parter because one of the techniques involved in making this generator, I feel that it deserves a video all of its own. So what we're going to do is in this video, we are going to make the generator itself and paint it up and base it. And then in the next video that I do with this Necron generator, we will do the OSL or object source lighting to light up the interior of the generator and bring it to life. And that video will be up here somewhere when it's done. So without further ado, let's check out what we need to make this Necron generator. Okay, so here are some of the things that we're gonna need to make this piece of terrain. First of all, you're gonna need your 30mm thick foam board that we're gonna make the generator body out of. You're gonna want a knife for cutting stuff. You're gonna want your hot wire foam cutter for cutting out some nice shapes with. You're going to want some fine sandpaper, which we're going to use to smooth up any surfaces we need to smooth up. You're going to want some base coat, you're going to want some colors, you want a variety of brushes, one for fine detail, one for covering large areas, one for glue. You're going to want some sand or flock or something to texture the thing with. You're going to want some gap filler because it's great for sticking stuff down with. You're going to want your 3mm thick MDF board, which we're going to use to make a base with. You're going to want your PVA and water in your spray bottle to seal everything with. Some PVA just by itself is great for sticking your sand down with. And this bottle just happens to have a really nice round shape to it, which we're going to use a bit of a template. And we're going to use this rubber boot because it's slightly smaller than this. And both of these will mark out some circles for cutting out. And of course, you're also going to need a pencil to mark stuff with, because what's the point of having templates if you can't actually put the template onto your foam before you cut it? Okay, so step one is that we need to get the foam that we're going to make our Necron generator out of. So to work out what size, we're going to take our bigger round thing and sit it on our foam board. And we want the bit that we cut out to be a little bit wider than the round thing is, so that we have a bit of room to work with. Then we just take our knife and cut out a little square that is a bit bigger than the big round thing that we're using. Okay, so once you've got your block of foam cut out, you can take your large round thing, in my case it's this PVA glue bottle, and just sit it on. I'd recommend going for one of the corners, as we're going to cut a few other bits out of this block. You want to grab a pencil or something for marking the foam with, and just draw a circle around it, like so. Then we bring in our small round thing and try to sit it as centered as possible. And we're going to draw around that, like so. So now we have two circles marked on our foam. And now for the fun bit. We bring in our hot wire foam cutter. We heat it up by turning it on. You can check the temperature and burn your fingers, that's always fun to do. And then you just take your foam, and I recommend doing it in stages, and just try to get them so that they're as level as possible. And you just start cutting out the shape. Get a nice edge on that side, Then we're going to bring it in and continue cutting around. If you don't get this perfect, it's okay, because that's what sandpaper's for. Just try to get it as close as possible. Put that bit to one side, as we're going to come back to that. And you're left with a little disc, well, puck type thing like this. And now you can use a straight edge or something, or something with a straight edge, I should say. I'm just going to use this sandpaper going across the midway, and we're going to draw a nice clean X across it. Like so, that we're going to use to mark it. Turn our hot wire foam cutter back on, and now we are going to cut out the inner portion. So you just take your cutter in like so, and trace around the line, and this thing cuts through this really easily. And then you can turn it off, let it cool down for a moment, pop that bit out, then you want to just pull it back through, try to avoid burning anything you don't want to cut. And now we are going to take a piece of our sandpaper, and we're just going to sandpaper the outside of it, just to take off any imperfections from when we were cutting it out by hand. Like that right there, there's a nasty bump right there. And it's also advisable to do the inside, trying to avoid tearing the foam if possible, just to get any loose bits that aren't quite as smooth as you'd like off. There we go, like so. Now we can bring our foam cutter back in, get it to warm up. You know it's warm when all the little fibrous bits on the wire start to melt. And now we're going to cut it into quarters. By cutting along the lines that we made earlier. And I recommend when you're doing this, you hold the piece of foam on both sides of where you're going to cut. And you can, of course, neaten up any cuts that you're not entirely happy with. Then you just brush off the furry bits. It will look best if you line up the bits as they were when you cut them out. On this one, as you can see, there's a bit of a lip there. So you can always get your knife and just trim it up a little bit, just to neaten up where it's been cut out. But you don't want to take too much off, because it'll throw that gap off. Now we can just stick that to the side for a moment, and with this bit we want to take our foam cutter, and we just want to neaten up one edge of this piece of foam that we cut our original circle out of. Neaten that up, sand it a bit, just to clean it and make it nice. And now we're going to take our foam cutter, and we're going to make sort of, I'll just turn that off for a second. We're going to make sort of a shape a little bit like, that, which is going to be the feet for the corners of each of our generator. So we're going to take our foam cutter, we're going to put it in there, going to cut down and across. And it gives us a little bit like this, which we can then get our knife and cut it into some thinner pieces, giving us our little foot shape. Now we want to cut out 8 of these, because off memory, each of our little quarter circles has 2 on it. So you just cut off 8 that are about 3 to 5 mil across. Okay, so now when we space each of the bits of our generator apart, like so, we can take our little feet in here and place them like so to get a rough idea of how they're gonna look. Oh, it looks like I cut 9 out. And it's gonna come out something a little bit like that. So we'll put all of those pieces over to the side for a moment. And now we need to cut out a base. So you want to cut out a piece of your MDF that is an appropriate size for your generator. So for me, about that is good. And looks like I am cutting off some of my maths from the other day. And you just score along the MDF as usual until it slices through. Then once you've got your board cut out, we're going to bevel off the edges. And you also want to make sure that the slope on it is nice and shallow so that when you put models on it, they don't tip over. So now we bring back in our good friend acrylic gap filler, and we bring our pieces back in. And you just take some of your acrylic gap filler, like so, put it on your finger, and you take your pieces one by one, and you need the tiniest bit on the bottom. And you want to place them onto your base, sticking them down. And you want to have a little gap between them, but you don't want it to be too large or it starts to make the thing look a little bit weird. And you definitely want the gaps between each piece to be nice and consistent with one another. Then you get a bit more of the acrylic gap filler and you get each of your little feet. Put a tiny bit on each one. And you stick them down. And I don't actually remember how Dawn of War originally had them arranged. I think it was like that. So I'm going to put these ones like that. I'm sure I've done that wrong. As I recall, they came out more centered. But we're going to stick them down like that. Because it seems, it looks okay. And if I don't like it, I can always rearrange them before the acrylic gap filler sets. And it ends up looking something like that, which I think it looks pretty cool like that. But here's one I did a bit earlier with just one and coming out of the side, and it looks pretty good as well. So you can do it in either way. It's really up to you, but it looks good either way. And then all you have to do is base coat it and give it your colors, which we will do right now. Okay, so I painted just the standard colors that I've been using for my Necron terrain, which is just my Space Wolves Grey and then some Gehenna's Gold on all of the edges, and it comes out looking pretty good. Now all we need to do is just to texture the base and seal it, and it's all ready to go. So as usual, we get our PVA and just put some on the base, grab a crappy brush for glue, and just spread the glue out, trying to avoid having the glue run too far up the sides of things. It's okay if it goes up a little bit. I mean, this thing rose out of the sand, so to speak, so if it goes up a little bit, that's fine. But we don't want it to go up too much because then it starts covering up detail. And if you find that it does go up a bit too far somewhere, you can always brush the sand or whatever basing material you use off before the glue dries. Which in places like in here, you're definitely going to need to, because good luck getting a brush in there to spread the glue out without getting glue on spots you don't want it. And you just get the glue in the middle as well. And to get in these small gaps in here, we're just going to have to brush sand off afterwards because there's just no real way around it. Then you bring in your texturing material, in this case I have my grey sand, and just sprinkle it in there. Then you can just shake any excess off back into your container. Then where you've got sand in some spots you don't like, on top of these bits, you can just brush that off with your finger easily enough. And if you grab a nice small brush, you can use that to brush some of the sand off on some of the harder to reach places. Then all you need to do is seal it to make sure that sand doesn't come off. And I've decided, given that this video is already going on for a reasonable amount of time that I'm going to do the OSL in a separate video. So you can play them like this now and they can just be turned off. So yeah, I think that's coming out pretty nicely. And for now, all we have to do is seal it and we can use it. So there you go. That's how you can make yourself a Dawn of War inspired Necron generator for your wargaming table. And I think it's come out pretty well. It's a really simple design and they look fantastic, and you can pump them out quite quickly, especially with our little hot wire foam cutter. It makes the job a lot easier to do and possible, because good luck getting nice curves like that with a hobby knife. It's doable, but it's just a pain in the button, not worth it. Now, the only thing that it really needs to really make it come to life is some object source lighting, just to light up the inside of it, which I will cover in another video, because I think that it's such an important skill that I'm going to dedicate an entire video just to how to do object source lighting well. And for that, I will just get a little foam ball or something and rig it up in the middle with some wire going out. It's going to make some really cool lightning effects, but I will cover all of that in another video when I get around to doing the object source lighting for these Necron generators. And as always, if you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up so that we know that you like it, so that we can keep making stuff that you like. And if you have an idea for anything wargaming related, or a question, or just anything in general, chuck in the comment section below and we'll get to it. And if you want to improve your wargaming, make your tabletop battles more epic, and give your wargaming budget more power, then just smash the crosshair and ding the bell. You'll subscribe and I'll be able to share with you more battle reports, terrain tutorials, and strategies to make your wargaming experience more epic. And I'll see you next time.